a strong recommendation to wear headphones to gain a better experience of voiceover with songs. Jimin is crazily throwing things here and there as Mrs. Kim is freezed on her place because first time in her entire life her son is acting like a mad person. Jimin picked up the vase and threw it harshly, making a loud thud. So Mrs. Kim covered her mouth to avoid the scared voice of her to come out. Her eyes full with tears as she recognized her son is not like he used to be. Jimin about to punch the glass window, but Mrs. Kim held his hand in between. That stopped his fist to be even touch the glass. But Jimin pulled his hand back and looked at his mother sharply. Mrs. Park's heart is beating fastly to recognize that he is not incensed to behave, and it's showing that the person is standing right now is not his jolly, happily living son anymore. He whispered like yelling because his voice is weak, but his heart is beating uncontrollably. So Mrs. Park cupped his face that filled Jimin's eyes with painful tears that shivered Mrs. Park too. Jimin removed her hand angrily and stepped back, then started shouting. Jimin started shouting crazily while pulling his own hair, so Mrs. Park quickly rushed to him and tried to lose his grip. But he is not incensed, so he's still pulling his own hair. That must be hurting him, but right now his heart is aching so much that he doesn't care about this torture to himself. She tried her best to stop her son to hurting himself, but her heart stopped beating as she suddenly heard his dark sarcastic chuckle. So she looked at his son with blank eyes because he started laughing like a psycho while throwing his head back. His lips have mischievous smile when he is looking up the ceiling, but his hands are fisted over the thighs. Mrs. Park is not believing what she is seeing and hearing as her son is acting like completely mental person. Soon sun rays start rising, so Jimin glanced outside the view and smirked. Jimin stand up straight as he fixed himself, then take out the phone to check out the time. He about to pass by Mrs. Park, but his steps halt as she held his arm and asked, Jimin yanked her hand away and rushed inside the bathroom to clean himself. Mrs. Park flinched as he banged the door harshly. Her heart is beating fastly, body is sweating. Then she looked around the room to analyze the whole mess he created. Jimin sat calmly yet angrily while tracing the gun over Taehyung's face, but Taehyung is moving like a tiger to get rid out from the chains. So Jimin stopped the gun at his forehead and pressed with pressure to make a hole there. But Taehyung is still glaring him like he doesn't have any fear. Rather, he wants to get out from the chains to choke Jimin till his last breath. Jimin's eyes are looking at Taehyung's face from up to down. Then his lips smoke disappear as something hit his mind. Your heart dropped down in his stomach to hear him. So Jimin removed the gun from Taehyung's forehead and hung his hand down. Taehyung struggled more to hunt him. He yelled like he wanted to kill Jimin right away, so Jimin slowly stand up, then disgustingly dusted his hands and jeans. Your heart shivered as you recognized what does it mean. Then Jimin kicked Taehyung's stomach, so you yelled his name. As you said, he became more angry and kicked Taehyung again, causing him to hiss. Then Jimin turned around to look at you. He started taking his steps toward you as you look at him straight with teary eyes, because still your heart is praying that he will not say anything that will break you more. Taehyung is yelling to free himself and to not touch you, but Jimin kneeled in front of you and passed you a cheeky smile that he used to do. He placed hand on your cheek, then started caressing it with thumb while smiling more. You jerk your head to remove his hand, so he looked down at his dropped hand, then at you. He chuckled darkly yet painfully, then again placed hand on your cheek that you try to remove, but this time his hold is tight. He started pressing his finger on your face with his needy gaze, so Taehyung yelled. Jimin's eyes darkened, so he leaned near your neck, then sniffed deeply to get your fragrance while saying, Jimin's muscle tightened, so he leaned back and looked at you sharply. Then Taehyung said loudly, He yelled one of his guard's name, so he come forward, but as Taehyung's eyes caught the guard, his muscles tightened to recognize him. Taehyung clenched his jaw as he started struggling more to break the chain because he recognized that he is the same guard whom your brother sent behind him when he was running away to protect himself. Sugar leaned back after whispering to guard, so guard nodded and started running behind Taehyung. But Jimin clenched his jaw as he heard Sugar's word via microphone. Guard glanced at Jimin, who is hiding behind the pillar, then signaled him to ask for permission. Then Jimin nodded to him to do as Sugar said. Jimin clenched his fist as he hiddenly started following Taehyung and guard from behind. Jimin is fuming in anger and his heart is desperate, like this is the last chance he has to remove Taehyung from your life. Taehyung is breathing heavily while resting his hand on knees. His body is sweating due to long distance running. He looked here and there to search the place to hide, but his breath stuck as he heard footsteps from behind. He became blank. Jimin nodded and started running to the direction with him. Soon his steps stopped as his eyes caught Taehyung, who is sitting behind a tree while resting his back at trunk. Jimin smirked as he recognized Taehyung by his clothes. Jimin started smirking widely as guard covered the Taehyung's head with black cover. Taehyung started struggling, but guard tied his hands together, causing him to fall on the ground. He is struggling to free himself, but seems like guard and Jimin are cruel right now. Soon guard light up the lighter and fire up the corner of Taehyung's shirt. Soon his shirt catch the fire and within a second the whole body covered with fire. Taehyung is yelling for help, but Jimin brushed his hair back in satisfaction as he saw Taehyung's lifeless body fall on the ground. Your heart jolted by his word. You are feeling like whole time you were trusting the person who is the reason behind your and his suffering and pain. Your heart is freezed, so Jimin crushed your cheek to take your attention. But as you come in your senses and look at his face, he smiled to you. Now you start hitting his face, but he is smiling. That is pushing you to punch him so that he will never smile back. But soon his smile disappeared as Taehyung yelled. Jimin turned his sharp gaze to Taehyung, but Taehyung can see that he is fuming in anger. So Taehyung's lips curve into smirk that make Jimin more angry. Jimin clenched his jaw and tightened his hold around the gun as Taehyung is smirking. Taehyung starts chuckling sarcastically, that is pushing Jimin to come toward him. So Taehyung's smirk widened because he wanted this. You start struggling as you realize Taehyung is rising his anger, but that's not the good idea at all because Jimin is holding the gun but Taehyung is tied with the chain. And Jimin popped out veins of hands, showing how much he is angry right now. Taehyung pressed his name so that Jimin will be triggered and open his chain, but unexpectedly you shout from behind. Jimin shoots Taehyung's leg out of nowhere. Taehyung yelled by the sudden sting of pain and you shout. Jimin became more angry, so he kicked Taehyung's stomach, causing him to yelp in pain. He is continuously kicking his stomach, so now Taehyung's blood starts coming out from his mouth, but still he said with a weak smirk.
You're such a fucking hoe. I love it.
Jimin stopped kicking him and quickly grabbed fistful hair of Taehyung to make him look at his eyes, but Taehyung's smirk is not even move a bit. Taehyung's smirk became more wider as he saw the desperation in Jimin's voice, so he shook his head in denial. Jimin punched his face. You and Taehyung both know that he is taking advantage of Taehyung's helpless condition. Because if Taehyung was not tied with the chain, then it will never be possible for Jimin to torture him. Jimin is continuously punching Taehyung without caring about his pain. Jimin's punch stopped in air. As he recognized the voice, he looked up the person and became shocked to see. Jimin yanked Taehyung's collar and stand straight, so Taehyung started coughing blood. You are worried for Taehyung, but Jimin is trying to believe. Is he seeing the right or not? Soon the person come near him and face him courageously.
Check and believe and do your job. Bird is the name, then bullet to the chain.
In the meantime, Jungkook, Jin, Mr. Kim and Suga rushed inside. Jin's heart shivered to see the scene in front of him. Because you are tied with the ropes and your tears are continuously slipping from your eyes.
Give me the chain, rest in peace to my security.
Suga and Jin nodded, then start moving toward you and Taehyung without making any noise. Taehyung is looking up at the person as she is the only one who can face Jimin right now. But soon Taehyung feels someone is opening his chains. So he glanced back through the shoulder and found Suga is unlocking his chains. Then he looked at you and found Jin is untying you. So he slightly breathed in relief. Jimin stepped back, then threw the gun harshly on floor, as he was never expecting that she will do this with him.